Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel this week for another video. I'm really sorry that I'm late this week on my video. I've actually been super busy trying to get ready to pack and get my life together before I leave on a trip to Alaska, which this is my plug that I will not be posting a video next week because I will be in Alaska, but that's okay because I think the Alaska trip I'm going to try to vlog or make some type of video for my Alaska trip, and so I'll have some really good footage and content to put out when I come back. This video is going to be really exciting because I'm actually finally going to dive a little deeper into my interests in documentaries by doing some documentary reviews for y'all. And I would really love some feedback on how you would like these to be formatted in the future. So I was thinking in the beginning of doing like documentaries of the month and reviewing 3 documentaries in a video. But my too much gene was kind of like, that doesn't give me that much time to really talk about the issues that are addressed in the video, which I would really enjoy to do. Like, that would be my favorite part probably of doing a documentary review. But at the same time, I don't know if you want to sit through like a 10 to 15 minute video about one documentary. Like, maybe I shouldn't get too much into the issue because then you would be like kind of seeing what the whole thing's going to be about. We'll try some things out and you can tell me what you prefer either way. So for this video, I'm going to review one documentary, and then maybe for my next one, I'll switch it up and we'll see which one does better, or like from feedback from y'all. So I wanted to say the reason why I'm starting this on my channel though is because in one of my previous videos, I talked about how it is my goal in the future to be a documentary filmmaker or be involved in the art process somehow, because I really enjoy documentaries. It's my favorite genre of film. So I think in order to be a good documentary filmmaker or to be good at anything that you want to do, you really have to study the arts and, you know, the complexities of it. So I've been committing to make myself watch more documentaries so that I can become more aware of the different art styles and different tools, methods, narratives, so many different things. So I'm going to split this video up into 4 parts. And after I watch a documentary, I sit down with my notebook and I write out immediately all of the things that I thought of the documentary. So first, I'm going to talk about my favorite points that were made in the documentary. So my favorite issues, like what exactly was it in the documentary? What points did they make me aware of? And so the documentary that I watched, I'm going to put the movie poster right here, is called The True Cost. And you can actually watch this documentary on Netflix. By the way, most of the documentaries I watch are on Netflix because it's super accessible. But I'm also maybe going to try to watch documentaries in other places. Anyways, so The True Cost is an entire documentary about the really vast, huge negative effects of the fashion industry. And if you don't know what I'm talking about when I say fashion industry, I'm talking about the systemic production of clothing on a global scale. And when I say fashion industry, I'm not just talking about high fashion. I think that's what people think of when you say fashion industry. You think of high fashion, like couture, like Chanel, Versace. No. I'm talking about the everyday clothes that you and I wear, and even high fashion and couture. So this entire documentary is focusing specifically on the damaging effects of the fashion industry, most notably the harmful effects on laborers, so the people that are employed to make our clothing, which, you know, people would call these conditions sweatshops. A lot of people have become aware of what sweatshops are, but I don't think on like a very deep dive sense have they become aware. So it really explores, like, what's really awesome about this documentary is that it goes to, the narrator and the production go to other countries where these clothing factories or warehouses or whatever you call them are most abundant, like Bangladesh, Cambodia, India, and it goes inside of these places and follows one character. Her name is Shima, who's in Bangladesh, and she kind of tells her story about being somebody who works in a sweatshop. And so that is like one of the gist of the documentaries. And then the other side of the documentary is also about the harmful environmental impacts of the fashion industry. So on one hand, you're really focusing on like how exactly are labor laws and human lives being put at risk because of the fashion industry. Like, how is this directly impacting the employees that are being like contracted? They're not even like fully employed, they're being contracted. And then also, how is this in the long term affecting people who aren't even a part of the fashion industry? Like, there's so many chemicals and like runoff water, pesticides, and like really dangerous chemicals and processes that are being used to make these clothing, and how that's leaving, like, it's not as much happening here, but like in India, it showed so many places that have been just absolutely environmentally destroyed. Like, their runoff is affected, their drinking water, their groundwater, all of it affected by all of this like dumping into the rivers and stuff like that. So the huge environmental impact of all of these like huge sweatshops just completely dumping their waste and like carbon emissions into the air and stuff like that. There's a really powerful moment where they begin to dive into how the fashion industry is really only like 50 to 70 years old now, because up until the 1950s, most of the clothing in America was actually made in America. And so it really dives into how the lifestyle that we live in the West of consumerism and materialism equaling happiness is like causing us to overproduce and like create such enormously high demand for this huge amount of cheap clothing. But I have to say, one of my favorite parts from the documentary, if you didn't know, I don't know why you would know unless you looked at my Twitter, I'm actually an anti-capitalist, so I'm very privy to like Marxist analysis of our economic system, and it's very rare so far that I've seen a documentary talk explicitly about capitalism, and I loved this movie because they had a person on there who put it so eloquently about how difficult it is to critique our economic system. But basically he was saying, like, you know, when you have education, when you have politics, when you have, like, I don't know, agriculture, like, list, you know, any industry, it's very it's socially acceptable for you to criticize that system, because if you criticize it, it will get better. Yet there is this massive phenomenon as a result of like propaganda and all these things that we cannot critique our economic system. And he says this word for word. He's like, why is it that we're allowed to call so many things into question in order to better ourselves and better that system or better that process and practice? But with capitalism, we are not allowed to critique capitalism, to talk about capitalism, or you're a communist and you're a traitor, right? That's how the narrative always goes. Or it's like, if you critique capitalism, it's so much about, well, that's just the way it is. You have to have, it's like an utilitarian, like you have to have some costs to have some benefits, right? Anyway, what I really love is that there was a moment in this film where I counted it probably 6 times they said the word capitalism. That's how eager I am to hear people actually get to the root of the problem. And so when they were talking about our lifestyle of consumerism, and they use the word consumer a lot, commodity as well, I just think it's so accurate to paint the picture in reality, in a material reality, and talk about the actual motivator behind this entire industry, which they talk extensively about how the reason that there are so many fashion companies in Bangladesh and India, Cambodia, Southeast Asia, like all these places, is because they're seeking the places that have the lowest minimum wage so that they can create their products for as humanly cheap as possible so they can yield a maximum profit. And they talk in this documentary about how our system of capitalism that constantly motivates creating a massive profit, infinite profit, as much profit as possible, is what is killing us and what is leading to so many of these countries just completely screwing over their citizens and allowing for this to happen because these countries are afraid of these industries leaving their country and going somewhere else where they can find it for cheaper. Now I kind of want to get into the artistic style and cinematography of this documentary that I really enjoyed. So I would have to say it's a very standard documentary narrative, or like setup process. But I did enjoy, it's not always that you see in a documentary that the filmmaker kind of inserts themselves into the film. Sometimes it's just like, here's a documentary, you don't really know anything about the people who are making it. I don't know if he was a director or producer. He never explained his position in the role of making the film, but I would assume that he had a really big part. Like, I would assume that he was like the director or producer, like the person who decided to make the film. Anyways, he inserted himself in the very beginning and said that he was really motivated to make this film, that he knew nothing about the fashion industry, that he decided, he was asking all of these questions and decided to take action about them. And then in other ways that it's like very standard documentary is you have a few different players, I guess you could call them, or characters. I don't like to say characters because they're real people, but people who are in positions in this issue. So first you had Shima, who was the sweatshop worker who you followed, and then I can't remember the other names of everybody else. But then there was another person who's part of this like fashion collective who is trying to work on fair trade laws and like create clothing in an ethical, like environmentally conscious way. And then there was also a woman that you followed who is in the United States who's a farmer who produces cotton, and her journey of creating organic cotton versus like pesticides and chemically altered GMO cotton. There was an amazing moment in this documentary where it literally like it was when this started happening, I literally said out loud like, what the I was like, this is so real. There was a moment in the film where they started playing YouTube videos of YouTubers doing hauls. And it was in the moment when they were speaking about like our culture of materialism and how we equate commodities with happiness. And that was, they did it a few times, and that was so, it was just so mind-blowing because it just really directly hit home. Like, I used to watch those haul videos. I used to be a person that would really, really crave to see all of these videos about somebody buying their clothes and showing them off. So I thought that was a really powerful stylistic choice. But other than that, it was all kind of like basic documentary. There were many times too I would notice when somebody would be talking, like if they said the word people, it would pan to some of the like footage that they got like in India or in Bangladesh, or if it said the word like chemicals, it flashed a scene of like waste runoff, you know. So I thought that was pretty interesting too, like literally linking the words with the visuals to make it a lot more powerful. Now I'm going to talk about the storytelling aspect, which I kind of talked that a little bit with like how it followed these characters. Yeah, so it felt like it was like a standard arc where you're kind of getting to know this person, and then like what exactly their life is like, the conditions that they're living in. And then it went to a moment where it kind of got dark, and how it talks about how this issue is directly affecting them. And there were many powerful moments with Shima. She was like recounting when she tried to unionize and how she was physically assaulted and attacked by her employers just for trying to unionize. So that was really, really rough to watch, but of course really powerful ethos was used throughout this entire documentary, I would say. So the last thing I'm going to talk about for this documentary view is my overall takeaways, meaning every time I watch a documentary, I am going to kind of talk about what I would like to change differently, or what about it that, you know, I really gathered from it, and how I'm going to, like, if I'm in a position to change something about my life, what is it that I'm going to do as a result of knowing all this information and watching this documentary, right? So I would say, I mean, everybody's guilty of this, but I'm going to take responsibility and say that I was largely unaware, ignorant of the harmful effects of our major fashion industry and all of this fast fashion. And ignorance is not an excuse, but it just speaks to how hidden and pervasive this problem is, because literally everybody participates in the fashion industry. And I would say only within literally the last year and a half, if that, probably a year, I have become aware that there are issues with the fashion industry. And I learned about this actually from YouTube, by reading comments about people who were criticizing some YouTubers who've made clothing and participated in fast fashion. But I still was like, especially very ignorant to the ways that this is affecting laborers in the working class, and how absolutely like immoral and like reprehensible it is that we literally just do not take accountability for the people that are making our clothes, and are not fighting for them, and not doing things that we can to put them in better positions. So as a result of this documentary, I am going to be not shopping at Topshop anymore. So I'm a big culprit. I really like Topshop. I've shopped their clothes for a long time now, and I need to stop. So I'm not going to shop at Topshop anymore because there's no excuse now that I know so much about this. I really want to invest my money into fashion companies that are explicitly working hard to make clothing in America or make clothing in conditions that are extremely favorable for the worker. And so one of them that I've really been looking into for a long time was Everlane. So I placed my first order to see how it goes, and they were actually recommended. If you go to the truecostmovie.com, you can actually see a list of recommended sources of clothing brands that the movie production team, I guess, recommends, and Everlane is on there, and then there's some other ones on there. So that's one investment that I really want to make. I also really need to work. I really need to work on my association with consumerism as happiness. And this movie really got to me because there were so many moments where they talked about how we've just been brainwashed to think that if you just get this new thing, you will be happy, right? And this totally works on me. And it's really sad because I will buy the new thing that I've convinced myself that I need, and it wears off within a matter it wears off within a matter of hours, days, weeks, and I'm just not happy anymore, and convince myself that I need to buy this next new thing to make me happy. So, that being said, I really need to work on really psychoanalyzing how capitalism has ingrained an association with stuff as equating happiness. So I'd really like to do a lot of reflection on that, reuse a lot of my stuff, not buy as many clothes, and if I do buy clothes, I look very deeply into how they're being made. So that is all I have for this documentary review. I hope that you all enjoyed this. I would really like to make it a point for me to talk more in my videos about serious issues that I care about. If you go to my Twitter, you'll see that I frequently talk about issues all the time, but I never really take it outside of Twitter. Maybe occasionally on Facebook, but not really in my videos, and that's something that I would like to start doing. So one of my ideas is to do it through talking about documentaries, but if there's other ways that y'all would like me to make videos, I think I'm going to experiment with it, and if you have any ideas, I'm definitely open to listening and seeing how we can, just make ourselves more politically conscious and aware of the ways that our system is flawed. Or not even flawed, it is doing what it's designed to do, but how we are not experiencing as much benefits as we think, and why we need to make changes in our everyday lives to better humanity. So with that being said, I really hope that you enjoyed this video. Please give it a thumbs up. Leave a comment down below letting me know what you thought of this, if you learned anything about the fast fashion industry, and if you're going to watch the documentary, because I would highly recommend it. I wouldn't really give it a star rating, but it was super good, and it really messed with me, which is what I think a documentary is supposed to do. So don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you'd like to see more videos, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye!